everyone. Welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Zafransky, your host. As always, all the pertinent information of contacting me and everything is running below me in a green chyron, as they call it. But just so you know, you could see me on Twitter. You could read my political opinions and all the things I'm not allowed to say on the radio. On Twitter, I'm also on the radio every Thursday morning from 8 to 9 in Cleveland, Ohio. But you can get it on the Moody Radio App, and you can listen from anywhere. That's WCRF 103.3. You can call here at 1-800-344-2534. I've actually been on Moody Radio Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week because they're doing their big, it's one of the fundraisers that they do. I think they do 2 big fundraisers a year. This is one of them, so they feel like I'm good at raising money, which we did a lot. We raised a lot of money this morning. I've actually been raising money all month because we've had Pastor Marcos and Paula here from Brazil, and we've gone to some churches around the country where they've been supported in these churches and talked about a big project that they're doing in the middle of the Amazon, which is they're building a church building. It's going to seat about 300 people. It's going to have classrooms. It'll eventually be a Christian school building also in the upstairs. It's going to have dormitories for the indigenous people, the Satare, who come out of the jungle and need a church to go to and get some training, some job training, because people come out of the jungle and they have no job training and they think they're just going to get a job, and they can't. There's not a lot of honest work in the city. And so what happens is people get involved in crime and prostitution and drugs and alcohol because they really don't know what to do. And so the church's the continuing mission, of course, is to drill clean water wells and deliver the gospel to villages. But this is going to be a new part of that mission. So if you want to donate or anything like that, please go to nativosusa.org. You can donate there. You can see the mission. We'll start, we're going to revamp the webpage a little bit. We'll put some pictures of the church on there that they want to build so you can see it. And we're going in March if you'd like to go. So Amazon trip in March of 2025. We have a few spots left, but it is actually filling up relatively quickly. A couple of the churches that we spoke at, they're going to send people on that trip. And one of the churches is doing its own trip later in the year. So if you have a church that would like to do its own trip and you're interested about it, reach out to me, because we want to help you go. But, okay, so I don't know if you know this, but there's a presidential election in 35 days. It's 35 days or so. It might be 32 days now. November 5th. And you could see if you're registered to vote. You go to vote.gov. Corey's going to put that up right here. Vote.gov to see if you're registered. Now, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but if you love capitalism and free markets, you're going to vote Trump. And if you're a commie loser, you're going to vote Harris. So I don't know who you're going to vote for, but those are your 2 choices. And, it's not just as simple as 1 or 2 issues. It's several issues. It is, of course, immigration is probably the leading issue on the ballot this year for this presidency. The Democrats have let in 20 million people. We saw this week how many were that they knew were rapists and murderers and criminals, convicted felons. There was one guy from Venezuela convicted of 21 murders, came here and they let him go on our streets. It's not just about the economy, where we had a Trump economy that was really good. I mean, it was really good. Of course, he had to deal with the pandemic, which really hurt the economy. But even in that year, even in 2020, the markets performed very well. And if you took our advice, if you took my advice, you made even more money because you bought into the fall. And the fall of the market on February 19th, 2020 was the high in the market. And then it just dropped off. I think it might have fallen 22%. We bought that. And so the market came back before the end of the year. So you got not only that return trip, but all the growth after that. So you did very well. The Trump economy was great. Now you spent some money. But I think what we're looking at now, so it's not just those two issues, it's other issues too. It's look at the way the world is in chaos right now. They were accusing Donald Trump of he's going to get us into World War III. Well, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of smart people that think we're in World War III right now. It just hasn't blown up yet. Israel is about to retaliate, I assume, against Iran for sending a couple hundred missiles their way, and Israel's going to be way better at it than Iran was. Israel's going to hit their target. The things that Israel has done in the last month are nothing short of extraordinary. The bombs and pagers and cell phones and walkie-talkies is just, it's James Bond. It's James Bond for real. They've sent into southern Lebanon literally hundreds and hundreds of bunker-busting bombs killing Hezbollah terrorists, leaders. And so this thing is expanding, and it has the real capacity to expand beyond what it is now. Now, of course, we don't want to see that happen, but Israel has to defend themselves. They have to have the ability to do that. And the thing about Israel right now, from a global standpoint, they have an opportunity right now that they haven't had in 50 years. And that is to cut the head of the snake. And that's Iran. Iran now, for the second time, has directly bombed Israel. And if somebody was doing that to us, after 9/11, we fought a war for 20 years because of 9/11. Now, you could argue all you want, should we have done that? But that's what we did. So if we're going to defend ourselves, other people should be able to defend themselves. And Israel has, and I think they realize the how precious this moment is for them and their defense, where the world would not condemn them if they went after Iran right now. And that's why I think they're going to do exactly that. They're going to go after Iran. They're going to go after energy assets. They're going to go after infrastructure. And they should go after the nuclear program. They should decimate the two sites, one above ground, one in a mountain, but they should decimate those two sites. They're really fighting for the world right now. They're fighting a lot of the people that have exacted terrorism against us. Israel is killing right now. They're doing us a favor. And instead of the Biden administration supporting them, they're talking them down, and I don't like that. So that's also on the ballot in this election. And it's important because, I know the Middle East is a long way away. And when things happen over there, when a war starts, oddly enough, it doesn't really affect our markets. In fact, you would be wise to buy the invasion. So if Israel invades southern Lebanon and the markets drop, we're going to buy that. Because 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, the market's way back up again. So terrorism that happens overseas looked at very differently from the market perspective than terrorism that happens here, heavily discounted market-wise when it's happening someplace else. So we want to buy those. And I'm not trying to profit off of people's deaths. I'm just saying, don't use it as an excuse to get out of the market. Use it as an excuse to get into the market. So the other aspect of this is taxes and spending. So, most politicians, and it doesn't matter what party they're from, if they say, well, we need to raise taxes so we can, because we're in deficit. We're running a deficit every year. We're spending more than what we're taking in. We took in a record amount of tax last year, by the way, because of Donald Trump's tax cuts. So you cut taxes, you increase consumption, people pay more in taxes. I know it seems like the math shouldn't work, but the math does work. So think about it this way. So we have buses in Cleveland. It's the worst form of public transportation that you could have. You got to stand outside and wait for a bus to show up. It's horrible. But if you're riding, let's say the RTA, we call it RTA here. RTA wants to boost ridership. What do? Do they raise prices? No, they cut the price. They'll do like a free day on the bus, so anybody could ride the bus for free. Or they cut the cost and more people ride because now the economics of riding the bus for some people is better. So they cut the price in half, they double ridership. Okay, or you may even add more riders than double, so you're actually taking in more money when you cut the price because you encourage people to use the service. And that's the way taxes work. If you cut taxes, you encourage people to create wealth. And it's not wrong when people get wealthy. It's not a zero-sum game. I didn't have to beat up 4 poor people to make more money. I make more money, then I donate more money, then I spend more money, then you see that's the trickle-down effect of trickle-down economics, and it actually works. It really does work. And so one of the things on the ballot this presidential cycle is, are we going to tax less and spend less, or are we going to tax more and inevitably spend more? So in 1913, when they instituted the income tax, the federal income tax, there were 2 senators who we were going to cap it at 2%. And they said, we need to cap this, that it can never go higher than 2%. They got laughed off the Senate floor because they thought, well, why would it ever go above 2%? Well, the top marginal tax bracket now is 37%. And the top estate taxes start at 55%. So if your estate is over a certain number, it gets taxed at 55%. And so you have income tax, you have state income tax, you have sales tax, you have gas tax. I mean, think of all the taxes that you pay, and we were going to cap it at 2%. No, why would we ever need more than 2%? Well, because politicians love to spend money. And what Donald Trump is going to have to do when he becomes president, because I firmly believe it's going to be what I would call a minor landslide, is shaping up that way. He polls bad in the first place, and he's ahead in most of the swing states. So if the polling is as it was in the past, he's ahead by 5 to 7 points in almost all of the swing states. So it's going to be tax and spend versus lower spending and less tax. So a question that I get all the time is, why don't we have zero debt? Why can't we operate on zero debt in our country? And technically we could, but the world actually needs our debt. Our debt, the U.S. government's debt, is a stabilizing economic force across the world. And foreign governments buy our debt all the time. Japan, for instance, buys our debt before they buy their own debt, because their debt was paying a negative interest rate for a long time. You actually got back less money if you bought a Japanese government bond than you put in. So you put in $100,000, you got $99,000 back. It didn't make much sense to buy it, but people still did because some people have to buy debt. But our debt is looked at as a stabilizing force in the world because we have never failed to pay our debt. And our debt is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the federal government, which people take as the gold standard. So the world needs our debt, and we need some debt too. So we don't need 35 trillion or 37 trillion, what we have now, but think of the way taxes work. April and October is when the big tax payments come in. Well, in between there, we still have bills. So to kind of level out the lumpiness of tax receipts, you float some debt. And actually, the reason why we're the world's reserve currency is because we have enough currency floating around where people could use our currency even in Europe and Asia and South America and Australia, places like that. We have a lot of currency out there. China doesn't even have enough currency in print to be the world's reserve currency, although most things are done on computer basis now. You need a lot of currency out there to be the world's reserve currency. And so in order to maintain that, we're always going to have some debt. Now, what's an appropriate amount of debt? Well, it's debatable. I think it's probably closer to 15 to 17 trillion would be very affordable for us. But it's really a percentage of global GDP, because the bigger the global GDP is, probably the more debt we're going to need to run to satisfy the world's needs. But there's an appropriate amount of debt. The government's pocketbook isn't run like our pocketbook, our personal pocketbook, where I don't think you should have credit card debt. I think you should minimize car debt. I think if your interest rate on your house is 2%, you can run some debt, because in a money market, you can make 5%. So you could beat it with no risk right now, and you should do those things. But in general, governments, it's okay if they run some debt, especially our government. So there is an appropriate number, and that's why we run debt. But so when we talk about $37 trillion, we're like, we got to pay off our debt. We're not paying it to zero. So the problem isn't as bad as we think. We're really cutting it in half. It's still a big problem, but when Donald Trump gets elected, one of the things he's going to have to do is come up with a plan to stop the bleeding. And the way you do that is to don't run a deficit next year. Just cut spending. Can you do that? Well, of course you could do it. Of course you can. For people who say, well, you can't just cut spending, that's silly talk. Those are economic neophytes talking. Yes, you could cut spending. You don't have to pay for everything. How many billions of dollars do you think we would save if we just closed the border and sent people home? New York City. This is why I think the mayor of New York got indicted, by the way. One of the things he got indicted on was bribery. You know what he got bribed with? A plane seat upgrade. He got upgraded from coach to first class. So the mayor of New York City bought a coach ticket on a plane, and they upgraded him. Well, that's not bribery. That's courtesy, is what it is. But New York alone has spent more than $5 billion. One city, $5 billion to house illegal immigrants. How much money do you think we would save if we just stopped that? Well, New York would have saved $5 billion, I can tell you right there. So those are the things that are on the ballot this time. So I do want you to vote. I want you to vote for free market capitalism. I want you to vote for freedom of speech. John Kerry is on. He's at a seminar or a panel for the World Economic Forum. And his words are, and you can see this on Twitter. I love Twitter because I love Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a genius, and the things that Starlink is one of the most fascinating pieces of technology currently available to the general public that doesn't kill people. Starlink is incredible. And when Starlink goes public, when they break that out, separated from SpaceX, every one of our clients, if they will let me, is going to own Starlink. Every single one. It is an extraordinary piece of technology. But John Kerry is on this panel for the World Economic Forum, and he's saying, well, the First Amendment really gets in our way. It's really hard to legislate around the First Amendment, because what they want to do is they want to censor you. And if it wasn't for Elon Musk, we would still be censored. We would not know that they tried, how the efforts that they went through, the machinations that they went through to censor you during COVID, to shut people down, to shut people up, to stop people from talking, all because they had agendas. We would not know about the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, you may not care about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I don't really know if I do. And it's not really the point. The point is that it was real the whole time. We knew it was real, and they censored that information. And the more they can censor you, the less American we are. And so you could say, look, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Do I care? Probably not. But it's fine if you don't agree with me, but you should be allowed to say it in open. And I should be allowed to disagree with you. So freedom of speech means defending the speech that you hate the most. Hate speech, freedom of speech. Hate speech is freedom of speech. If you don't like a certain kind of person, a certain race, I don't agree with you, but you should be allowed to say that. And I hate that. But I'm willing to defend the very speech I hate the most. And that's when you understand freedom of speech. So that's what's on the ballot this time. That's why I want you to vote for free market capitalism and vote for Trump, because the other vote is just going to kill us. I was going to talk about wills and trusts, but I'm not going to do that because I'm running long. I will do it next time because it's a listener question. I am David Safransky, a real American, a defender of free speech, a true red-blooded patriot. and the voice you can trust.